If you're a private practice hearing care leader, then you have found the video, my friend, the video that shares exactly what the best practices in the world are doing right now in order to add sustainable growth to their business. No whiz bang tactics, no tricks, no just do this mailer, just do this lunch and learn, do this thing that you've heard 100 times before, but the actual deep pillars behind the work that you rarely see. I'll share exactly how it works, what the 8 steps are, and share examples of practices that have implemented these and the impact it has. In this video, I'm not going to leave any stone left unturned. I'm going to show you absolutely everything. And in a moment, we'll jump to my screen and I will walk you through it. But you are joining me and my buddy, Dave, who's in the most strange golden retriever position. But let's jump straight into this and let's get stuck in.
I look really strange in this corner, don't I? So look, let's start with a bit of a state of the nation right now, because we are at this very unique crossover between marketing changing significantly and market changing significantly also. And I want to start by just looking at the market and just a few observations when we look at what we're seeing right now. First of all, we have got the biggest, most monumental generational shift we've ever seen as an industry, because for the past 20 years, we have predominantly serviced the silent generation, people born between 1923 and 1945, which has been great. However, when we really look at this generation, there was 20 million of them born in the US. Consider their upbringing, right? The Great Depression kicked off September 1929, lasted 10 years till around 1939. They heavily grew up during that era. World War II, the US got involved in, I believe it was 41 or early 42. As a result, you look at the upbringing, and given that our view of the world is often developed before our 8th birthday, pretty horrendous time to be alive, where your beliefs around the world, around how people act, around money, around circumstance, around the value of things is very, very much impacted. And it's no surprise that the generation we've predominantly serviced for the past 2 generations are famously the most financially frugal in the world. The biggest user of coupons. They have big respect for authority. Doctors, institutions, government, they still listen to the radio very regularly, still read newspapers very regularly, etc., etc. They prefer formal communications. So phone calls face to face, they would not make a buying decision without looking somebody in the eye. And as we all know too well, these are not technology adopters. They rely on children, grandchildren for research and help. And if we think about these are the patients that we've been servicing for the past 2 decades, makes a lot of sense. It makes why people want to buy and hold for as long as possible normal. Take Warren Buffett, for example. The guy's worth $160 billion and drives an 11-year-old car. Very much explains that generation's view of the world. And when we look at this generation right now and we put them on a chart, we see that just beyond 2025, 2026, 2027, this number is unfortunately reducing and reducing year on year, and the numbers are dropping. Behind that generation, we had a very, very different generation, however. We had the boomers, people born between 1946 and 1964. Now, once again, very, very different, because there were 70 million of them born in the US. There was a lot of baby making post-war. The US dollar became the world currency reserve in 1944, and the economy boomed in the childhood and the childhoods of many of these people as the US became the superpower that we know it today. They grew up during immense prosperity, and this generation is the wealthiest on the planet. They hold 70% of all disposable income in the USA. They own 75% of all real estate wealth in the country, many of it debt-free. They're heavily work-centric, defined by their professional career. They're retiring later. It's a huge part of their identity. They want to live longer, age more gracefully, be active later in life, and health and wellness is their number 1 category of spend currently. They're the biggest investors in premium travel, for example. They will pay for good experience. And as we all know, they use technology as often as you and I. They use email daily. 82% have a Facebook profile, and they want to conduct research online before buying to feel smart, capable, and good about that buying decision. We look at them on a chart right now, and 2026 is the first year where there is more 70-year-old plus baby boomers than 70-year-old plus silent generation. And that number is going to grow and grow and grow. And by 2030, 1 in 5 Americans will be over the age of 70. We are seeing this. we are dealing with this right now as an industry. And it's no surprise that marketing's shifting, because the things that would have attracted somebody in the silent generation was very obvious, right? Newspaper, direct mail, radio, those modalities very much spoke to those people, especially if coupons, price incentives were dangled in front of them. That was a generation you were speaking to. It's no surprise it's not working to bring these people in, because these people, that's a turn off to them. They want preference over proximity. They want somebody that delivers care the way they want it. They want to feel smart about the decision they're making. They want to be in charge of choosing you, not being advertised towards. It changes the dynamics significantly. If the target's moving, it's no surprise that firing at the target where it used to be is no longer hitting in the way that it was. Second big market condition we're seeing right now is this. Amplifon have announced they're acquiring GN at the end of the year, and they've been very, very upfront about it. This is all about consolidation. They shared this in their press release, right? Of course, they worded it in a way you'd expect a corporate to word it, but what they're really saying is we're not just selling hearing aids anymore. We're trying to own the margin at every step. This is profit consolidation. That's exactly what it is. On top of that, like, we're looking to build a machine. We want vertical integration. We want everything from production through to distribution and everything in between that gap. And when they announced this, it's changed a lot, and it may feel subtle, but let me assure you, this is going to hit hard, because Amplifon's model has always been lots of points of distribution, centralized head office, centralized marketing efforts, and really 4 big manufacturers that they buy from in order to distribute stock. And every time they've grown through acquisition in the past, and if you look back at their portfolio and the acquisitions they've made and the press releases they've shared, they've always grown through adding more and more points of retail. In 2024, they added around 75 points in one quarter. They're aggressively pushing, but they've not made an acquisition for a period of time. And it was all since a share buyback program that they launched in June 2024, where they shared they're going to buy back 10% of their shares to use in a modality of ways, whether that's to gift employees, incentives, redistribute, or to use for acquisitions. So the prep was always they're going to push hard once they've gone through that. And it was estimated October 2025 is when they would be. But they went with this chess move. How do we eliminate our need and reliance on multiple manufacturers that we do not control? And if they have an issue, we have an issue. And how do we just go and make a chess move and acquire one? That's exactly what they did. They went out and bought GN Resound. And as a result, they now get more margin growth. They've got the ability to decrease their pricing. They've got potential R&D speed for the feedback loop, not having to go through multiple companies, multiple levels of middle management. And the big one that any big business wants: control. But if we put a box around Amplifon right now, we have probably the biggest Goliath that we've seen as an industry. Like, we've had Goliaths, we've had corporates, we've had roll-ups, we've had the Costcos of the world. What we've never had is a Goliath of this level, where we get mass vertical integration. Now, we're not the first industry to see this. This has happened to many, many other industries. So to try to assume what's going to happen via guesswork would be silly. But if we can instead look at the clues that has been left behind by other industries where this has occurred, we can be one step ahead. So let's have a little look at what's happened elsewhere. One of the biggest examples that stands out was this. So Mars acquired VCA. It was a $9.1 billion acquisition. And at the time, it was one of the largest deals ever seen in veterinarian care. So VCA, before acquisition, 800 animal hospitals across the US and Canada, 60 plus diagnostic labs. Mars already owned Banfield Pet Hospital, Blue Pearl Specialty and Emergency Pets Hospital, pet food giants like Pedigree and Whiskers. And it was a big, big move that occurred. What happened as a result? Well, the group introduced a standardized pricing model. Talent got vacuumed into corporates with higher wage offers, signing bonuses, less admin. Marketing become industrialized and centralized, and the middle got squeezed. And there's multiple studies about how the standard local independent veterinarians field of force and feel the consolidation impact that ends up gobbling into their market share. Happened in many other industries. It's happened in pharmacy. CVS Health and Walgreens Boots Alliance expanded aggressively. Once again, more control, more control, more control. It's happened in dental with Aspen Dental and Heartland Dental consolidating thousands of practices, centralizing marketing, billing, staffing, aggressive patient acquisition strategies. It's happened in funeral services with huge roll-ups in like Dignity Memorial. It's happened in eyeglasses, as we all know too well. It's happened in multiple industries. So if we look at the clues and what we're likely to see as an industry, let's just chart it like this. If we look at a pyramid right now and we go, okay, the number of people, the biggest is at the bottom, the smallest is at the top, but typically the willingness to spend and the investment they're willing to make somewhat matches that. The biggest part of the market is down here, right? It's your Costco's, it's your Amplifons. It's the ones that want to feed off the mass market. The mass market typically being people that believe they need a set of hearing aids to solve a hearing loss, and they want the cheapest, most convenient option to do that. Like, that's where they feed, because profitability isn't really their main goal. Market share is. They've got a stock price to reflect. Middle of the market, we have our kind of standard independent hearing clinics. These have been in business for a period of time. They sell hearing aids, have good service, have happy patients. It's been solid, it's been predictable for a number of years. And this is your local, either mum and pop shop or local independent that's done well, has good reputation, etc. Top of the market, you then have this kind of boutique and unique. And of course, this probably doesn't correctly represent. It's probably a lot smaller boutique, a lot bigger of the bottom and a slightly smaller in the middle. But just for ease, let's look at it like this. But boutique and unique, these are practices that premium positioning, strong local brand, they have something about them that's different, that makes them very different to a Costco and Amplifon. Like, it's a speciality in tinnitus. It's the way that they do things is very unique to the point that somebody would choose them over one of those alternative options solely because of this thing. It's a niche focus. It's relationship-led care, like a lot of specificity to it. But if we look at the clues that we see from other industries and go, okay, what are we likely to see with the consolidation and what impact is it going to have? Then it's very clear. It's always the middle that gets squeezed, and they get squeezed. And eventually they're squeezed so tight that people have either got to conform and end up playing this game or change to be more unique so they've not got to compete. But with Amplifon's acquisition of GN, they're not trying to eat market share sideways. They're trying to eat market share up. And I think they're going to have a very successful time doing it, because there's a lot of practices out there that if you ask them what makes you unique, the answers are fluffy, right? It's we care more, we do great service, we've got a good reputation. And all that is great. But fundamentally, if Amplifon rocks up in your town, they can outspend you in order to acquire a patient. It costs significantly less for the patient to make a decision with them than you. They've got all the margin growth to almost cause damage to you with no damage to themselves. Becomes a very difficult market, because a patient may like you, but do they like you $2,000 to $3,000 more? In most situations, the answer is no. And this is where it's very, very difficult, because those at the bottom, they can out-advertise you, they can outprice you, they can outspend you in all areas, and they've got the chess move of a manufacturer behind them. Like, this is where these big, hairy Goliaths are going to cause issue. And we're about to see our first big one. Because you take something like Amplifon, they have a recognized and reputable brand. They can produce their stock for less than you. They can spend your annual revenue on an advertising punt. Their name and reputation attracts employees. They have access to an ungodly amount of data to predict trends and be several steps ahead of you. They have big HR departments handling hiring, training, onboarding, and firing. And they have investors plowing millions, if not billions of dollars into growth. And then you as an independent, name, logo, brand carries very little weight outside of the people that already know you exist. You don't have the buying power to negotiate favorable deals in many instances. Marketing dollars matter. Every marketing dollar's got to work very, very hard. You wear all the hats, you make all the decisions. Risk isn't spread, it's firmly on you. Like, if we look at this from an economical perspective, we should never be in a chance of winning as independents against anyone like an Amplify. And this is the game that we need to get very strategic on, because if you really map this out and you look at the businesses in dental, the businesses in veterinarian care, the businesses in funeral services that have gone on to continue to survive and thrive as independents, they're not trying to beat the big chains at their own game. We are not equipped as independents to play that game. We are going to get smashed every day of the week. What they do instead is go, okay, how do we change and evolve to be more unique, be more boutique, play a different game, knowing we're not trying to chase the mass market and play width. We're looking to be specific and play depth. That is where many practices that I'm seeing having a very good time right now are going. But in terms of this David versus Goliath, this has very much been my focus for the last several years with the practices that we've worked with. So much so that my book, Hello David, shares exactly the framework that I'm about to walk you through of how small and independent businesses can outcompete, fight above their weight class, and take on Goliaths. I've got to use a Floyd Mayweather Big Show. So that's the market right now. Let's look at marketing, because there's a significant amount of change. And it all stems back to this, because Google have pretty much dominated everything forever, right? If you want to use the internet, you would Google it, you would go online. Google would be your prominent place to go. And Google were very much at the forefront of this AI race from an online perspective. If we go back to this Economist article from December 2017, they were investing billions into this technology then. But they got through a right hook they weren't expecting. And it was from OpenAI, who launched ChatGPT Search. So end of October 2024, ChatGPT that had come onto the market and got some attention, which was really trained on an existing data set. They connected it to the internet and they created an alternative way that people could use the internet. It grew like crazy. ChatGPT grew to 100 million users within 60 days, significantly faster than anybody else. They almost become the #1 AI website. They hit 365 billion annual searches in less than a year, which is 5 times faster than Google. And for the first time in a long time, we've seen Google on the back foot. So there was articles like this talking about Google's search market share dropping below 90% for the first time in a decade. You read about Google looking for an answer to ChatGPT, the fact they're having this crazy kind of competition, they're having midnight board meetings. And then you see global equity and research brokerage firm Bernstein, who was suggesting that Google's search share is closer to 65 to 70% rather than the 90% we often hear. And Google came back throwing punches. The first one was the introduction of their AI overviews, which means that right now, if you make a search for a question on Google, what you'll likely see is, rather than the 10 traditional blue links that we've seen where you've got to go and search for the answer yourself on somebody's website, we get one of these synthesized AI written answers at the top. So you search a question like, what does ringing in my right ear mean? It goes and looks at all the different information online. It pulls an answer for you, serves it you through a synthesized written AI version from there. Since that launch, we've seen a huge drop in the number of click-throughs from a Google perspective, which basically means now when people do a search, significantly less of them end up on a website following making that search because they get the answer that they're looking for from the AI overview. That was Google's first step. Their second big one was this. On May 20th, 2025, they launched their AI mode and they rolled it out immediately. Now, this was big because it instantly hit every single search bar. And you may have seen this that sits on the right-hand side, this AI mode that's there. And very quickly, it surpassed 100 million users in a couple of months' time. We've seen Google's organic click-through rate drop significantly, quite naturally. And this has changed a lot of how people are utilizing the internet. But there's not been any conclusive data on how many people use this versus traditional search. That changed on May 19th, 2026, essentially 12 months since they first launched their AI mode. Because what they shared is they have now surpassed 1 billion monthly active users globally. It's doubled every quarter since launch. Now, that is monumental. The number of people that are using AI mode now is crazy. The day after that article, they stood on stage at their Google I/O conference and they shared a few further updates around where search is going. The first one they shared, the search bar is changing to encourage users to expand. And they worded it as the biggest change to the search bar in 25 years. And essentially what this means now is as you start to search, they don't want short searches. They want big, juicy, in-depth, comprehensive searches for you. So like this was the example they shared, not new hobbies near me, not I want to try pottery. Give it all the depth. Tell it when you're available, what your interest is, your existing skill set, whatever it may be. And that will go away and not just say, here are all your options, good luck, but here's the option we believe is right for you. The second one is the introduction of their AI agents. And they shared it with this example. I'm looking for a private karaoke room next Friday that can fit X number of people in. And what the AI agent will go on to do is not just say, here are your options. It will allow you to have all the flexibility of somebody that's almost an agent on your behalf, which means it will be able to go on and schedule for you. It will find availability. It won't just say, here are your options, good luck once again. It will say, there's availability at this karaoke bar. It's 5-star rated. It's available at 7. It can fit your 12 friends in. And there's a special deal on where you all get a shot when you walk in, whatever it may be. Which means for the first time now, online scheduling on hearing care websites is going from a preference to a requirement if you want to win in that battle. And then the third big thing that they talked about is the expanding personal intelligence, because Google have a phenomenal amount of data on you, right? If you think about the brain of Google, they can read your email. They know what you're into, what you're not, what you read, what you subscribe, what you reply to. They can see your calendar if you use Google Calendar, which once again means they know what you prioritize, where you go, what you do, what you're into. They can see your search history, every single search you've ever made, they know it. They can see where you go on Google Maps. They know where you travel to at what times. They own YouTube. They know all of your interests. They can see what you buy online. They even own Fitbit. They know what your heart rate variability is, your sleep score, and how many steps you get on a daily basis. And they know at 6 a.m. you go on a certain walk on a certain route in a certain way. Like, it's scary how much information they have. And what Google are looking to do here is personalized search. So when you now use AI mode to say, I'm looking for this, it's not just going to serve you in the same way it would serve everybody else. It's going to serve you based on the profile that it's built up on you. Because if this knows you have a certain set of interests and preferences, the recommendation it wants to make to you is something that meets your preferences and is the right recommendation, which is a really, really exciting and a really, really scary time from a marketing perspective. Because what it does mean is traditional things that have always worked are no longer going to work and are no longer really working now, which is somebody searches hearing aids, be number one, get that blue link click, get them through to your website, generate an inquiry. That's the game we've played for a long time as an industry and what marketing has looked like. But what we're seeing now is, okay, if everybody in the same area, in the same room, all search on Google AI mode, the same thing, and that thing could be best restaurant near me or best hearing care clinic near me, they're all going to get dramatically different answers because Google knows they have different preferences. One's always driven by price. One wants flexibility around evenings. That's really important to them because their schedule means they work 9 till 5 every day and have no days off. One always wants premium experience and always wants to buy the best of the best. 3 different recommendations, which means that search is now more specific than ever before. Being relevant to someone is more important than being visible to everyone. Having specificity of who you're for and proving that is so key. AI is prioritizing authority, not just relevance. Doesn't matter if you're local, they want the best recommendation. Trust has never been more important. Evidence is not nice to have, it's the baseline. And your practice might not even appear. Like, discovery is going to be more and more competitive because now it's not, can you be on the first page? It's, can you be one of the first 1 to 2 to 3 to be recommended? Because if you're not gold, silver, or bronze, you're not on the podium. People don't even know that you're in the race, which is the big, big puzzle right now If you're already in their orbit, they've already consumed your content, you're significantly more likely to be recommended. Google followed that announcement by rolling out their core update, which has created a huge amount of volatility. But if we look at where we're at right now, marketing and market, we are in the cusp. And it's no surprise the industry can feel a little funky right now. New patient flow is slower than it's seen. We've got a market shift going on with boomers. We've got the consolidation that's going to hit us like a punch in the gut. We've then got marketing changing, which is changing the dynamics of how people find options online. It's no surprise that we feel like we're in this little bit of a unique and compromised spot. However, I do have some good news through all of this. It's because for the past 9 years, we've been working with a number of practices. Right now, we work with 86 practices across the US and Canada. And what we've learned over that time is there is a methodology, there's a framework, there's a set of pillars that a practice can implement in order to very much go from middle of the market to being boutique and unique and growing all of their key numbers in their practice. And just to help you understand this, right, a little bit of context, we see a lot of data. 2025, across all the practices we manage, 1.5 million website visits by nearly 750,000 people, 67,000 inquiries generated, 352,000 patients, 204,000 campaigns that we sent. We were very early on things like artificial intelligence, on the fact that Apple were hiring audiologists and it was weird and they're likely going to roll some hearing health features in, the fact that AI search was changing, the fact that Google were making moves, the fact that 2025 was going to be a record year for upgrades, the fact this boomer trend that's going on, when new algorithms change and we spot them, we move very, very quickly. And a big part of our focus is always we trade in what's next, not what was. That's one of our core values that we hold very true. And as a result of 86 practices trust us, we run a lot of marketing and a lot of marketing experiments. And it was interesting to pull this quite recently to compare how the practices that we work with compare to an average practice in the US based on MVP's extensive data set of over 1,100 practices. So this was based per FTE, a full-time equivalent, and we went through it, right? Units wise, an average was 107 per FTE of somebody that works with us was 28% better. We look at premium ASP, our practices were 6% better. Opportunities, 11% more. New patient opportunities, more. Existing patient opportunities, more. A big one, revenue per FTE, 29% more revenue per FTE. Like, we've learnt the hard way through many, many experiments. How do you get a practice to have sustainable growth that isn't reliant on events, isn't reliant on running a one-off mailer, a one-off campaign to always find that next batch of patients? And what we've done is we've learned there's a methodology, there's a framework that you can put into place. This has been blood, sweat, tears, multiple experiments, and more sleepless nights and hours than I'd probably dare to admit. But over time, we've worked out, okay, there is a framework that we see work amongst all practices, that when they get these pillars in place, they set the foundation to be significantly more solid, where they become the obvious choice in their community, their reputation grows, their recognition grows, and their revenue grows as a result. And I'm going to walk you through it. And I don't want to just walk you through it. I want to take you through practical real-life examples of practices that have implemented this and show you the results. So this is the framework, and I want to walk you through each and every step. There's 8 steps to it. Everyone is intentional. They don't all need following in order, but they all need executing correctly. You get each of these in place, and it sets you up with the most solid foundation that creates sustainable growth. Growth that allows you to not go great month, terrible month, peaks and troughs. Growth that allows you to have solid foundations, from the number of referrals you'll get, number of organic patients that find you and choose you, your reputation in the community, and how you leverage your database and new patient flow from there. And I'll start with the first step. Start with who? Because most practices have been guilty of doing this, right? They open their doors, they draw a big circle around where they are, and they're like, anybody who needs help with hearing, we are an option for you. They go wide, they go mass market, they go as generic as possible. And that's the way we've been taught to build businesses, right? You get very good at the thing that you do. You open up the doors. And as Kevin Costner said, if you build it, they will come. And as we learn, that isn't the truth, especially when you're trying to appeal to everyone. If you try and be the right fit for everyone, you are the right fit for no one. And as we spoke about, right, we're seeing a big shift right now where we're seeing changing patients who want preference. They want somebody that speaks to them in the way they want to be spoken to, that delivers care in the way they want to be cared for. And even if we go back to the way Google's changing, this is what the algorithms are looking for. If you're trying to be for everyone and be so generic and vanilla ice cream, it's going to be very difficult in order to choose your market, choose your lane, or own that lane, or even be recommended in a today's world. And as we work with this practice that I'm about to share with you in Colorado, we got very clear when we started with who. Because in order to understand how to deliver marketing, you need to understand who you're delivering it for. Because if I was preparing a speech, but I didn't know if the audience was going to be toddlers, surgeons, or a bachelor party, very difficult to understand how to position what you're about to say. And with this practice, we got very clear. We were like, okay, who are we for? And we went for a bit of a soul searching mission in order to get that right. And it was a deep call, it was consultation, it was discussions, it was reading their existing reviews, working out where their best patients come from. And what we really determined was we just want patients that want overall treatment. Like they know this is a journey. It's not a destination. They want high levels of care and expertise. This isn't somebody wants a hearing aid. This isn't how much are they. This is I want the best partner because I want to do this correctly, which meant we got the target right. And when you get the target right, all of your messaging, all of your marketing then is a lot pointier and a lot sharper. Once you know specifically who you're communicating to, you know specifically how to communicate to them and what they need to hear. Because previously, this is what the website said of the practice. Audiologists and hearing aids. We offer a wide variety of hearing healthcare services to help you hear better and hear for life. That's better than most, right? But by working through this exercise, we were like, okay, for somebody that wants overall treatment and understands this is a journey, not a destination, what do they want to read? Well, they want to know you're independent, therefore this is going to be a long haul journey. They want to know this is trusted, and they want to know you do the highest levels of care. So independent, highest rated, most advanced team, celebrating 32 years of helping thousands of local people to achieve better hearing through the highest level of audiological care. Like that speaks directly to that person. That person that wants that comes to this site and they're like, okay, this looks like it may be the right fit for me. The next step is look like the business that you want to grow into. Because what we're seeing now more and more is more of the patient themselves are the one who are doing the research on the internet, right? It used to be more of the caregivers, the family. The shift we're seeing right now is it's more of the patient themselves, which means that as an industry, we can't get away with bad websites. And we've got away with it for far too long because the core patient doesn't choose us online. And similarly, the level of competition who we're often dealing with is another independent down the road who's as bad as us from an online perspective. But now the game's changing to be big groups, big competitive groups who can be very aggressive advertising with their perfect Goliath polished brand. We can't get away with that. We need to have websites that really allow us to put our best foot forward, communicate effectively why we're the best choice, be very clear on what makes us different and why we can help the patient to achieve the outcome that they're hoping to achieve. Not just in the way it looks, but the way it performs, from the number of visitors to the number of inquiries to how it shows up and how we're in key positions in all the key areas for all the key things that we want, for how we dominate the likes of ChatGPT and AI mode and any of the modern ways that people are utilizing the internet to conduct research. So we've got clarity on who we're for, and we've built a web presence to look like the logical option for that market to get perfect market fit and clear value proposition. We then need to build a never-ending body of evidence. This has never been more key in an AI search world right now, where we've got to meet the algorithms and also meet the people, especially when there's so much data about the huge trust recession that we're currently in right now. I don't know if you're still watching the video. Dave's decided to join me. Because this was a study from 2021. Nearly 400,000 people was interviewed and surveyed, and they found that half of them see brands as trustworthy and 71% have little faith that brands will deliver on their promises. Like, we need to match that. We need to beat it. We need to do a good job. And there's a few ways you can do that. Like, this is a great example. Like, building case studies is one of the biggest power moves that you can have. Not testimonials, not ABC hearing you're amazing, highly recommend, but in-depth case studies. And this practice in question from Colorado, they did this wonderfully. Like, they interviewed patients. We've got a process that we put into place, which is a really smart email positioned correctly to emails that takes them positioned correctly, to patients, to take them through a questionnaire online. We get a multitude of patients that complete this, and it shares story. When they first realized they had a hearing challenge, their preconceived fears, concerns, why they chose the practice, how better hearing's impacted their life, their advice to anybody that's considering visiting you as a practice for the first time. Works incredibly well. And then the introduction to share a picture of themselves to accompany it to help more people follow in their footsteps. Like, when you get a quantity of quality case studies like this, it's so immensely powerful, especially when all of these stories are the exact same story as the types of patients you want more of. Because when they come to your website and they see people like them who have got their exact same challenges and concerns and preconceived fears, but have now moved forward with treatment with you and are sharing back to them to say, we are so thankful that we did this, it does all the marketing to make your life very, very easy. Similar things. We can't say things and not prove it. Like, those days are gone. Can't say we're the best. We can't say we care about the community. We can't say we give back. That's not believed unless there's evidence. And if you didn't get a picture, it cannot be true. Like, you've got to prove it. And this practice did an amazing job. They're community focused. That was previously a throwaway line. Now it's documented. Pictures. We're at this event. We're doing this. We're everywhere. Huge, huge power. And of course, reviews always play a key role from there. So we get to this stage, right? They've got clarity on their who. They look like the logical option, and they've got all this evidence to prove to these people that we are the best fit for you. Anyone in this market will not look anywhere else because these are head and shoulders above everybody. We then come to collect your extra money, because from my experience, most practices, the lowest hanging fruit that exists is fixing your existing pricing. Because what I see is most practices sell hearing aids plus service, the exact same thing as many of the mass market offers. You cannot play that if you want to be boutique and unique and not be going toe to toe with a Costco. If you're different, we've got to prove it, and we've got to prove it in much of the pricing and positioning of it. And this practice did a wonderful job. Like, we went through the process of evolving their pricing to no longer be hearing aids, but be treatment plans. This practice went down a bundled route. There's so many different ways you could go, very much down to what's the right fit for you as an organization. But by packaging this in the right way and ensuring what's articulated is 90% the value and service that you deliver, that means it's not a apples versus apples comparison to everyone else. It makes it a lot stronger value proposition, simplifies the patient decision-making process, grows ASP, grows help rate, etc. Similarly, where's their money left on the table right now? From extended service plans to adoption plans for patients that bought devices elsewhere, looking at all those areas and ensuring that the non-hearing aid revenue is functioning correctly. We then come to elevate the conversations that matter, because you look like the best fit, your pricing's aligned to the types of patients you want, that very much plays to the way that you deliver service and care. But as an independent community-based business, your community is the absolute beating heart of your practice. And we need to communicate with everyone that matters. And there's ways to do this very, very effectively. So this practice does a phenomenal email newsletter. And the goal of it is very simple. It's to close the gap between the professional reason the patient chose the practice and the personal reasons which will ensure they always choose the practice. There's very little hearing healthcare news in this. There's a lot more personality, people, community in here, whether it's spotlighting a local restaurant that the owner visited with a recommendation, whether it's sharing updates on members of staff, whether it's sharing some of those patient stories to spotlight different patients that have been on different journeys. Like, this becomes a resource that gets, 50, 60% open rates as a result of it being like a community asset that adds value to the practice, doesn't just feed them information, and it feels like a transactional based email. Similar to this, How do we communicate with physicians? Well, this practice has a quarterly physician newsletter that shows that they have their finger on the pulse of what the latest hearing care healthcare information is, shows that they care greatly about the community and the health of the community, and shows they would be a safe pair of hands for any referrals. But considering all those key referral partners, all the key people, these are just two of the ways that you can very much lean in to them. It's then about becoming locally iconic. Because if you've got clarity on your who, you look like the right fit, you've got all this evidence, your money's aligned, and you're growing referrals and reputation through all the existing relationships that matter, how do we then become the option that people just want to gravitate towards? How do we naturally become the name on the tip of people's tongue when hearing loss, hearing aids, hearing health come up in conversation? And this is where there's a power move that I'll share with you now. Because the previous way to do this would be you've got to just be around for a long time, or you've got to advertise so loud and proud and spend a lot of money doing so that people just know your brand name by proxy. The strategic way to do this, that this practice does, is something called Love Local. And what they do is they go and spotlight local businesses, they visit them, they have some food, they have a meal, they write about their experience, they put a big article together on their website. And what it does is it does a few things. Number one, it shows the algorithms and the people that we care about the community, which is very different than the big groups who cannot play this game. Number two is it feeds the email newsletter and once again becomes a community support asset. But the big power move, number three, is you take this on social media, you tag the business that you've written about and share it. And what will happen in nearly every situation is the business that has been written about will go on to reshare this with their customers, their likes, their followers, their email newsletter list, because nobody's ever written in so much depth about them as an independent business. Like, you will absolutely make their day, and you can be sure you're going to get pushed in front of their customers with an unofficial endorsement that says, we love our people over here. And as a result, you grow audience, you grow recognition, you grow reputation, and it costs you very little to do so. Similar ways to become locally iconic, being in the community, showing up, and very much documenting that from there. The seventh step is basics to a gold standard consistently. Like, this is the rule for any form of success, right? If you think about the strongest people in the world, the best athletes, often what they've done is just done the basics to a really high level and done it consistently over a period of time. And there's a really good story about a guy called Sir Dave Brailsford who took over the British cycling team, and they were performing terribly, hadn't won anything in 110 years. He came in as a performance director, and they went on to be one of the most successful sports teams of all time, dominating the 2008 and 2012 Olympics, winning 4 out of 5 Tour de France's, the most prestigious bike race in the world. He put it down to something he called the theory of marginal gains, which was essentially 1% improvement in lots and lots and lots of areas, which compound. And this is very much where we're at with this practice now, where those foundations are laid. And it's like, okay, how do we just keep improving? How do we keep improving the quality of the traffic, the quality of your website, the quality of all the things that go out? How do we have the next 10, 12, 15 marketing campaigns always lined up so we know exactly what we're focusing on to cover all the areas? And then that final step is grow the moat. How do we put as much distance between you and your competitors by leaning into something that's uniquely yours? With this practice, I believe it's going to be content. We're going to make the personal brand of the owner be something that becomes well known. Once again, playing towards their strengths and away from the weaknesses, or directly into the weaknesses of the big groups that cannot do this. But this practice worked with us. We've made a big impact. 117% revenue goal. 117% plus on their revenue goal, 127% plus on their unit goal. They're now attracting their patients, and they've attracted a great team during that process of people who want to deliver care in that way. But they've gone from being middle of the market to boutique and unique. Like, there's loads of examples. I give you one in Florida. I could give you one across the country. There's no shortage of these that have followed this framework and had those exact same outcomes from there. This one was 22% growth, 38% increase in private pay revenue, 50% decrease in TPA, and 2025 finished with 76% private pay units as they transition from TPA to private pay. And they've created an unbreakable bond between our providers and our patients with their ASP being better. But with this going on in the market right now, with you having to be boutique and unique if you very much want to play defense and attack simultaneously, that framework is the best I could give you. It's the best. Like, we've tested everything. Everything falls into this. And of course, there's tactics in this. There's other ways to become locally iconic. There's other ways to elevate the conversations that matter. There's other ways to collect extra money through database campaigns. But fundamentally, working through this framework is the magic. Now, given that you're still with me, I've got to be very open with you. We are always looking for new practices to work with. And you may, given that you're still at this stage on a YouTube video, be somewhat curious to be like, can you help me with this? And full transparency on us, right? We help independent clinics to become the obvious choice, as I've just shared. Want them to attract the types of patients they want to work with, charge premium fees with confidence, attract pre-sold private pay patients, and really build a reputation that's regarded by existing patients, local physicians, and the wider community. Right now, 86 practices across the US and Canada trust us, and we achieve those outcomes by implementing this 8-step framework that I've just shared with you. We do it through over the first 12 months. So the first 3 months are very much dedicated to getting the strategic planning, understanding exactly what we need to achieve, get very, very sharp with that value proposition and your who, build a best-in-class website, collect all those powerful in-depth case studies, and then get your website live, growing inquiries, working well from an AI search and SEO perspective. Essentially, take you through those first 3 big foundations within the first 3 months. We then roll into building your high impact email newsletter, getting that right, getting your physician marketing engine running, and finding uncovered hidden revenue in your pricing strategy from there. In month 7, we start to identify highest leverage segments within your existing database in order to generate as much revenue as possible. In month 8, we focus on the pre-appointment to ensure you're growing help rate and ASP by looking at how do we better prepare patients ahead of that appointment. Month 9 is all about that love local and how we very much dominate in terms of becoming locally iconic. And then, of course, month 10, 11, and 12, we focus on the gaps and ensure that everything is performing as it needs to be. But in that first 12 months, we take you through this exact framework. Now, in terms of who this is for, we've learned that there's a certain number of practices that this isn't right for, and there's certain types that we get phenomenal results for. What we ask is that your practice has been in business for a period of at least 5 years. Like, you've got a reputation, you do good work, you are known, you have a revenue of at least $750,000 at the very least. You do great work. Marketing can only polish the truth. If you've got an unremarkable truth, there's no amount of polish that you can put to that. You're open-minded, coachable, and eager to grow, and you're not a pain in the ass. Shouldn't be too much to ask, but you know how these things work, right? But we are looking for 6 practices over the next 90 days. We work with 2 per month, always looking. Plus, it also includes a mastermind community, because the joy of having 86 practices that we work with is we have 86 practices that are forward thinking, that are givers, not takers, that are generating over $100 million in combined revenue. And there's a huge amount of lessons. No matter what puzzle you're facing, there's somebody else that has solved that and can help you solve it, save you a lot of time, money, energy, and sleepless nights in order to do so. And with that community, we have a monthly call, which we call our inner circle call, where we tackle a big juicy topic together. We bring 2 practice owners together who have done phenomenal things in that specific skill set and interview them from there. We have regular mastermind meetings, these virtual, bring a puzzle, we'll hot seat it, we'll use the collective wisdom of each other in order to solve it. We have a book club where we have some of the world's best authors join us, and then we get to apply the lens of their book to private practice hearing healthcare as we interview them and they privately join us for an interview. And then we have an annual event where we get together. Last year was London, 2026 has been Toronto, 2027 is due to be Texas, and we all get together, we learn from each other, we bring some of the world's best speakers in, and we make it an event that isn't about audiology. It's an event about the business of hearing and practice growth and growing ourselves as leaders from there. But if it is of interest, then we can help you to implement all of that. And then one final thing for you is we are very bold that we see the data, we see the results, and we know this stuff works. So for every practice that we work with, we put this in place. We put $100,000 guarantee. If you follow exactly what we tell you and you don't add $100,000 in practice growth within your first 12 months, we keep working for free until that has been achieved. You're not just protected, you're guaranteed to more than double your investment. And I won't share numbers right now. We'll have that conversation, and it is very visible on the link below if you want to go and find it. But you could probably work out from that, it's less than half of $100,000 per year. So if that is of interest, then all you need to do is hit the link below. It is in the YouTube description for this, and then we can have a conversation to see if it's potentially the right fit from there. But I appreciate you joining me for probably the longest YouTube video I've ever recorded, and probably will ever record. But hopefully it gives you a lot of depth, a lot of insight, and is very, very helpful. I appreciate your eyes, your attention, your ears, and spending so much time. If this has been helpful, please leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and add a like. That would mean a huge amount, especially, in fact, I'm just going to give you the word tomato. If you hit the word tomato in the comments, I know you've watched up until this bit, and that will absolutely fill me with joy when I read those comments. So please tomato away, or tomato. You say tomato, I say tomato. You get the idea. I appreciate you watching. Speak to you soon.